Morning. Morning, campers. Hi. It's Friday. Smile day. Morning, Stephen. Morning, Sheila. Morning, Kirsty. Alex. Oh, moving fast now. Morning, Robert. Lenny. Marlene. John. Nancy. Nigel. Kevin. Morning, Mr. Milligan. Hey, that was a great blog you wrote this morning, David. I recommend anybody that hasn't seen it yet, I'll be mentioning it in my report. But if you want to read David's blog, don't bugger off the new, read it after the report. Okay, where are we? 97. Hi Stuart, hi Mark, hi Quentin. Quentin, you're number 100 today, so let's get this broadcast underway. Indytruck Davy, out the truck and at home in Salisbury, in his office, where it is overcast. It's 12 degrees, but the forecast says it's going to be dry this morning, a wee bit rain this afternoon. That's the weather forecast for Salisbury, North Lanarkshire. You want to know what the weather's like where you are? Look out your own bloody windy. Okay, let's get this broadcast underway, and as we have had the National Records for Scotland update on COVID, we'll start on the COVID figures, alright. The COVID-19 update from National Records for Scotland, weekend on the 22nd of May. There were 6,174 new cases identified. That'll be probably PCR tests, because lateral flow is not around. Unless you're like Sarah and I, who are still doing lateral flow and sending them in, alright. There were 652 people in hospital, of which 8 were in the intensive care. 52 people died with COVID as a contributing factor in their deaths up to the weekend on the 22nd of May. Now, according to the National Records, according to the Office for National Statistics, 1 in 45 Scots has the virus, or 2.3% of the population, or 170,000 of us. Okay, so there's still a fair bit of it circulating, folks, although it is getting better, and the effects of it are lessening as we get into the warmer weather. Okay, right, moving on. Thursday started with only 2 stories in the headlines. Sue Gray's damning report into the behaviour of Bojo the Clown and his staff during lockdown, and Rishi Sunak to levy a windfall tax on big energy companies to help with the cost of living crisis. But we'll get a wee bit more of Sunak as we get into the report. Okay. The own Bojo and lockdown party. Sue Gray's report tells of all-night piss-ups, puke-ups and fights. Alright. There was also disrespect to the household staff, the security and the cleaners. Okay. The number 10 that staff had an attitude of lockdown rules only apply to the plebs, according to Miss Gray's report. Okay. The Miss Gray also blamed the attitude of Bojo staff on a failing of management at the civil service and by the political leaders in number 10. On the failure of political leadership, well, it's been the hallmark of Bojo's premiership. 3 years in office, Bojo and his criminal cabal are a reactionary government. Okay, they only act when pushed. Now, we've seen that through the pandemic. We only went into lockdowns when Bojo was absolutely pushed. The first lockdown was 4 weeks late. The second one, he actually held it after a couple of weeks, and throwing temper tantrums in his office, saying, let the bodies pile high. Right? And it's the same with the furlough scheme. Sunak didn't want to introduce the furlough scheme. It was the political pressure and the weight of public opinion that made them do it. This is a totally reactionary government down that road, and that's why we're getting such draconian laws. Because that's what happens with reactionary governments. And the threat of civil unrest with reactionary governments is always there in the background. And that's why we're seeing the new bill going through down that road to quell civil unrest and public disorder. And it has to do with public protest. There's a second bill going through. We already know that the police crime sentencing bill down that road more or less outlawed protest for almost any reason, well, they're backing it up with a new piece of legislation which will more or less rule out public protest down that road. But as the cost of living crisis bites and people can't feed their children, can't heat their houses, then civil unrest is definitely on the cards down that road, because they're a bit like the French. They'll burn their own feckin' house down, you know. Alright, let's move on for the Sue Grace saga. Alright, moving on. Thursday, and the day started on Good Morning Britain with no government ministers put up for interview. Instead, we had Rory Stewart, ex-Tory MP, on to tell us all why it is that the Partygate saga just didn't surprise him at all. According to Rory the Tory, it's just Bojo's character. A long line of failings. It's Bojo's character, alright? He also went on to tell us how that Bojo had put Rory in a bad position and misled him, or lied to him, while Rory was working for Bojo at the Foreign Office. Right? Apparently there was an African election, I think it was Kenya, Rory said yesterday, I watched the clip, and they were going to come out and say that it was an unjust and unfair election. But as Rory gets back for the press to get the press set up, Bojo had already said it was a fair and just election. So that was but we've seen that in all way, Nazin as Gary Radcliffe. Bojo just opens his mouth and expects other people to clean the bloody mess up. So all the government ministers were hiding yesterday. Nobody was put up to front the TV. The other person that was put, the GMB called on yesterday, or Good Morning Britain called on yesterday, was a Labour representative, because they couldn't get a Tory other than Rory. So up was Lisa Nandy. Now Lisa Nandy's on the television to demand that Bojo resigns. They're wasting their breath. He's already made it clear he's not resigning. You're not getting rid of him. Simple as that. It's down to the Tories now to get rid of him. That's it. You know. Right, moving on. Thursday started here in Scotland with a good news story for the NHS, believe it or not. Alright, NHS Scotland changing the way that breast cancer screening is done. Now this comes after a review into breast cancer screening practices in Scotland, right? Now women aged 50 to 70 are called for breast screening every 3 years. This was normally done by GP surgeries, which sort of convoluted the thing, right? So the new breast screening service will cut out the middleman stroke woman, i.e. GPs, and call women forward for screening themselves, alright? This was one of 17 recommendations in the new breast cancer screening services review. Now, the new service was to operate a more personal centred service with greater flexibility of appointments, an online appointment booking, cancellation and rebooking service. Now, the breast screening service will also send text reminders to women once an appointment is made. Now, the idea is to increase the uptake of the service, especially in the most deprived areas and rural areas of Scotland, where only 59.5% of women take up the invitation to go for breast screening, right? Now, in the more prosperous areas, it's 79.7%. Now, the service will utilise its 6 static centres and its 20 mobile centres to get out there amongst the people. And the other thing the service will do, it will upscale in order to carry out screening in the evenings and at the weekends. So, the idea is to get more women through the service. Right, now 700,000 women a year go to breast screening services, but they need that to be up. It's only averaging out between both at roughly about 64%. So they really need to get the amount of people going through up. Now to that 700,000 people that are screened each year, the service identifies about 1,000 women with cancer, breast cancer. So it really is important. Now I remember the hoo-ha I had to get Sarah to go and get hers done the first time at 50. But as you know, during the pandemic, Sarah had a cancer scare and all that stuff had to be done anyway. So, but trying to get her to go along after her invite for the doctor was difficult. So I have to emphasise this, ladies, it is important. If you're called forward for screening, which you should be if you're over 50 every 3 years, then bloody well go. Alright, anyway, this is a good news story. They're upscaling the service, they're modernising the service, they're making the service easier. Please, ladies, utilise the service. My mother died of breast cancer. Know a wee bit about this one. Right, moving on. Thursday, 4 ports to build new housing development at Leith Docks. The development is next to the new film studios in Leith, alright. And it's also next to that new green energy hub that opened up in 2021. I don't think it's done much, but it's there anyway. Alright, anyway, the development, if approved, will have 800 homes, a hotel and retail outlets. The plan will now go forward for consultation. Well, the thing is, Edinburgh desperately needs more housing. It is an expanding city. The area they're talking about, the docks, you know, it's old industrial land. There's nothing there. It would make a perfect place for housing. And there's already the studio there, which will make the hotel viable. And of course, you always need shops, don't you? Probably a doctor's surgery will go in as well, nursery facilities, that sort of thing. So a new mini town to be sprung up at Leith Docks. Great. It'll create employment if approved. Now, it's now going out to a public consultation to get the feeling of the public round about Leith and that. And if I lived in the area, I think of Leith and Portobello, I think I would be wanting it approved. Because let's face it, getting housing's hard enough in Edinburgh. And let's hope some of these houses that are built become social housing. Alright, so that's another good news story for Edinburgh. Right, 2 good news stories to start with. Christ, there must be something wrong in the press yesterday. Right, moving on. Thursday. First Transport to consider a new takeover bid worth 900 million quid. Now, the bid is being made by an investment fund, I Square. The bus and train operator share price rose by 8%. First Transport has previously rejected a bid from the same hedge fund. The First Transport shareholders were asked to hang fire while the board looks at this unwelcome approach to take over First Bus / First Transport. Okay, now First Bus doesn't need to sell, folks, because First Transport, First Bus, last year they sold after American Greyhound and Railway Network operations for 3.3 billion quid. So First Bus is quite flush at the moment. So I'm hoping it doesn't make it into the hands of a hedge fund. Because as we know, it would be more investor driven, it would be more dividend driven. Bus ticket prices would go through the bloody roof. This rolling stock would probably dwindle in standard, because we know that hedge funds are there to make money, no invest. So I'm hoping that First Bus fight this one off the way they did the last time that I Square come in with a bid. So the board of directors have asked shareholders not to get involved so that they can look at the bid and decide what's best for the company. As I say, let's hope it stays as an Aberdeen-based company and owned in Scotland by the people who own it now and the shareholders that own it now, because a hedge fund isn't the right place for transport companies. Alright. Moving on. Thursday, lunchtime rolls around. And First Minister's questions on. Now, the Deputy First Minister, John Swinney, is standing in for the First Minister. Nicola's self-isolating because of COVID, alright. Now, first up was Dross, and Dross went on the Ferrygate saga. Dross insisted that it was John Swinney who signed off on the deal, rather than Transport Minister at the time, Derek Mackay. John Swinney had to explain to the dafty Dross how it worked. By the way, Dross is looking even funnier these days than Bouncy Boy. He's bouncing up and down, big daft wee boy smile on his face. You can see the Tories behind him on the best chuffed, but we'll get a wee bit more into that as we get into the report. Anyway, Dross is smaving about a wee bit of paper claiming that it proves that John Swinney signed off on the deal. John Swinney had to say, "Hoy Spanner, that's a memo sent to me by Mackay telling me the deal's signed off and I've got to write the bloody cheque." Absolutely mental. Anyway, Dross knows he's had his bahookie slapped on that one. So Dross goes on to trains, didn't he? And Dross says the new nationalised ScotRail's a bloody disaster. So Swinney has to explain to him, listen, stupid, we couldn't train train drivers during the pandemic, so we're upscaling the new. So Dross gets on to Dross's favourite subject, doesn't he? Fitty. He's on the football. Will there be enough trains for the Scottish national team's tartan army next month when they play Ukraine? And Swinney looks up as if to say, well, you fucking spanner. Listen, there'll be enough trains. Piss off, you wazzock. So Dross, he gets a bum's rush and has to sit down. But as I say, the Tories behind him were growling at him. He looked like a silly wee schoolboy, well out his depth, and I mean well out his depth. I haven't seen Dross perform that badly for at least 2 weeks now. Absolutely mental. Anyway, next up was Poverty Pie Sarwar, wasn't it? And Sarwar went on trains and all, didn't he? He says it's a shambles. Anyway, Sarwar goes on to talk about a wee woman called Helen, who lives in Helensburgh and works at a petrol station in Dumbarton. And apparently she's relying on the 10:30 train to get her home. And apparently, according to Poverty Pie Sarwar, this is a cracker. It's costing her 20 quid a pop or 2 hours of your working day to get home at night because she's going to jump in a taxi. Now John Swinney's looking absolutely fucking perplexed, because John Swinney knows what Davy knows and what all you guys know, is that when they decided to cut these services, they would have a look at available transport round about. So Swinney's looking at Sarwar as if he's mental. Anyway, so, and just to clear this up a wee bit for these folks, I didn't even have to look this up. The 1A and the 1B by Queen Street bus station, Buchanan Street bus station, right, they run hourly. So every half hour you get 1A and the 1B running from Glasgow to Helensburgh. The 1A carries on up into Argyll and Butte a wee bit, and the 1B terminates there, right? Now the last bus through Dumbarton for day 2 is at 10:30 at night. Maybe a wee bit tight for a lassie if she finishes at 10:30. But the local service, the 316, it runs to bloody midnight. So what's this about 20 quid a pop for a taxi? You just have to walk round the corner and jump the bloody local bus service. So Swinney's looking at Sarwar as if he's daft. He doesn't know what the hell to say to him. So what Swinney just says to Sarwar is, you know, enough of this pish. Hey, you vote fucking Labour, you get Tory. And if you vote Tory, you get Labour. So Sarwar gets his bahookie slapped for saying nae coalitions, and then right after the council elections getting into bed with the Tories. Swinney absolutely perplexed. Davy boy absolutely perplexed. Davy had no idea what the fuck Sarwar was talking about, pardon my French. Nae transport for Dumbarton to Helensburgh. What? Wow. You don't have to believe me, folks. Just Google it. Use your search engine. I didn't have to. I already knew about the service, because Sarah and I have used it a couple of times for protests at Faz Lane. Wow. Absolutely. The two of them made absolute mugs of themselves. Anyway, Sarwar gets his bahookie slapped and he's sent to the naughty step. You know, absolutely sent to the naughty step. So that was First Ministers for you. 2 diddies, 2 up against the calmest man in Scottish politics, and both of them get their bahookie kicked, and Sarwar was sent to the naughty step. I don't know what the fuck Sarwar was on about when he opened his gob about this wee woman Helen having to pay 20 quid for a taxi game for work. Davy's jaw nearly hit the flare. Wow. At the very least, if the petrol station was the one up at the industrial estate, then she would just have to jump in a wee taxi to get her to the railway station, eh? And I don't mean the Broadwood industrial estate, I mean the one further up where the whiskey bond is. But, you know, absolute mental. And even then, the 1B gets up through Balk and out the back road into Helensburgh. She wouldn't even have to walk very far to get a bus. Absolutely nuts. I had no idea where bloody Sarwar was coming from. Nut job. He really does think, the two of them really do think that the Scottish public should zip up the back. Do you think there was no consultation in cutting these bloody trains? You think the Scottish Government and ScotRail hadn't looked around? Oh, the other thing Sarwar said was, there many replacement buses the train service put on? Say, Swinney's looking them absolutely gobsmacked. Are you a spanner? You think we haven't done a consultation on what we can and can't cut? Mental. You think they cut the train to Helensburgh at 8 o'clock at night without looking to see if there was a bus service to service people? Wow. Nuts. Anyway, that was First Ministers for you. What a bloody scream. Oh. Where are we? Right, moving on. While all this was going on, while all that was going on, down that road in the House of Thieves and Carpetbaggers, the Chancellor of the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Wide Boy and a criminal, Rishi Sunak, stands up to give a statement on the cost of living crisis. Alright, now Sunak has decided to introduce a windfall tax on big energy. Now the windfall tax will claw in 5 billion quid, but the total package on offer is worth 15 billion quid. So it looks like we are footing the bill. But that doesn't matter. As I said, the blog it was done by my partner in Trees and David Milligan. Go read it. That'll explain to you why the Treasury's got plenty of money. Alright. Anyway, Sunak had been working with Martin Lewis of MoneySavingExpert.com, and believe it or not, this windfall tax is targeted at those that need it the most. And it absolutely surprised me. Absolutely surprised me. And he's also spreading it around everybody as well. Because there'll be a £400 rebate in everybody's winter fuel bills this year. Everybody's. Right across the board. But it's the potential up to 1,500 quid for people who are unemployed and in receipt of housing benefits. The potential of up to £1,000 for those who are disabled and can't work. And 650 quid targeted at pensioners on pension tax credit, the ones that really need it the most, and of course the rest of them will get the 400 quid, the same as the rest is. Okay, so it was actually well targeted, but there was also caveats in there which were really important. Like Sunak has said that the triple lock will be reintroduced in the autumn budget, and that benefits will go up by inflation in the autumn. So we've got a big giveaway here. So we're talking 10% rise on universal credit and 10% rise in pensions. Davy was totally flabbergasted. But of course there's a caveat there, isn't there? He also dangles an incentive in front of the big energy companies. What he tells them is, if you invest in infrastructure and in the North Sea, then for every pound you invest, we'll give you a 90% rebate or tax relief on it. So they'd only pay tax on 10 pence in the pound, at whatever the rate the tax is. So there was a dangler there to get the big energy companies to actually spend some money and invest in the infrastructure we need. But there's a Davy says there, he didn't have to do that. He really didn't. And I'll get to Mr. Milligan's blog in a wee second. Because the boss of BP had already said that they can happen with a windfall tax. They've got how much cash they don't care. They're going to invest anyway. So, the tax relief wasn't necessary for big energy. Now let's get to what Mr. Milligan had to say about it. And Mr. Milligan's absolutely right. The windfall tax is all very welcome for this winter. But what happens when the energy cap goes up and we've still got rising food inflation in spring next year? A windfall tax isn't good. A one-off tax isn't any good. No, it's no good whatsoever. What we need here is a proper tax regime and a cap on energy costs. The way they have in France, the way they have in Germany. That's what we absolutely need. What Sunak did was play to the crowd, another reactionary bit of government, rather than a well-planned, well-thought-out strategy for moving forward. Sunak yesterday was buying off the electorate because of all the shite that's went on, our Partygate and Owen Patterson, illegal prorogation of Parliament, misleading the Queen. Must we go on? Breaking international treaties, breaking international law. This criminal cabal are reactionary, and the reason why they're reactionary is because they're buying the dumb buggers in England's vote. And I seen a cracker meme there yesterday, I can't remember who put it up, but it was a map of where mad cow disease was in the UK. Well, old enough to remember mad cow disease, eh? There was none in Scotland, there was little in Wales, England was, the whole map was red, and half of Northern Ireland's map was red. So, it could well be that the reason why people in England keep voting for these spanners and can't see through them is because they're all doolally. For eating contaminated meat in the 80s and the 90s. I thought that was one of the funniest things I've seen. Brilliant. Anyway, back to David's points of view, and I have to agree with my partner in treason here. I want to have taxes again. What we really need here is independence to take control of the energy markets and have a public run energy supply chain. You know, but okay. But as you know, David and I did our first two Davies show was on energy. It's well worth a watch. I mean, go and watch it. It's on the two Davies YouTube channel, alright? So that was Sunak yesterday. He actually targeted this stuff at the right place, and the increase by inflation of benefits and the reinstatement of the triple welcome pensions this November in the November budget is very welcome. But as I say, once again, reactionary, near long-term strategy. What happens when inflation hits 15% next June, or next spring, and then the energy price goes up again and there's no, is he going to impose another windfall tax? Is he going to bail us out again? This isn't good long-term thinking. But we don't expect anything better for the dual criminals and the criminal cabal down there. They might have had their parents pay for the best education available. It would appear that none of them sat up and taken any fucking notice, but I've never met them. They have got to be the thickest bunch and the most criminal bunch to have ever been in that house of thieves and carpetbaggers down that road. Seriously, I've never seen anything like it. Right, let's move on. Thursday, back here in Scotland, and ScotRail make train drivers an improved offer of 4.2%, with no compulsory redundancies for 3 years, and a number of other improvements to their contracts. Alright, ASLEF, the drivers' union, they had a straw ballot between the reps that were there, and they've decided to put it to their members, put it to train drivers. Alright, now, even if this isn't going to alleviate the problem, because it's going to take about 4 weeks to organise and ballot the train drivers on this pay rise. But it's a fair offer. Train drivers are already on 50 to 60 grand a year. 4.2% is not a bad offer. The only problem with that is you know, folks, we're going through round after round of public service pay negotiations at the moment, and 4.2 is going to be the minimum anybody's going to want now, isn't it? And of course we've got the RMT sitting in the wing, and we've got the GMB union sitting in the wing, waiting to make more mischief, A, on the railways, and B, on the public services which are delivered through councils. So, as I said the other day, there is going to be a lot of disruption, and Labour's grubby paws here in Scotland will be all of that disruption. So, expect services to be interrupted all the way through this year. Okay. Right. Thursday, after the windfall tax announcement, oil and gas industry body Offshore Energy UK say the Chancellor's windfall tax will affect investment in the North Sea and West of Shetland. It would appear Sunak's 90% tax relief on investment in his statement yesterday hasn't registered with the body, because as I've just explained, these companies are raking it in billions a week, actually. You know, let's face it, BP, what was it, 5 billion 5 to 9 billion in profits in the first quarter this year. Shell, 15 billion in profits this in the first quarter of this year. You know, they're raking it in. Absolutely raking it in. But so Sunak's 90% tax relief is going to stifle investment according to Offshore Energy UK. No, it's no. The big energy companies already tell us they're flush with cash. They're needing to do something with it. Turning it into more money is what these companies do. So they will invest in the North Sea. They will invest west of Shetland. They will do it. I mean, the Clare Ridge is massive. And that new one they were talking about and all, about you open up west of that again, absolutely massive. So there will be investment in offshore energy and gas as we have here. But what's interesting about this, folks, is 2014, in fact, all the way up to any suggestion of Scottish independence, Scotland's oil reserves seem to shrink and be worthless. But as we know now, the UK energy strategy is totally dependent on Scotland's resources. And it's no worthless. The money right now that's coming in, or could be coming into an independent Scotland from oil and gas and renewables, because we've got enough of that to export as well, remember, would be enough to pay for our NHS, our education system and our pensions. The taxation from it would be enough to cover the three. Without touching general taxation, i.e. VAT, fuel duty, tobacco duties, alcohol duties, income tax, national insurance, business taxes and top of that as well. So, you know, this useless stuff we were told in 2014 is financing the whole of bloody UK at this point in time, and Scotland's powering the whole of bloody UK, as well as the UK selling our reserves on the international markets, while charging us the highest energy charges of anywhere in the UK. Independence, anyone? And even with a fluctuation oil and gas revenues, because the price does go up and down. Have a look at this. Average revenues from oil and gas, even on a poor year, would be enough to pay for our education system, meaning primary and secondary, no higher, and pensions. And unemployment benefit, disability benefits. Basically the benefit system and education on an average year. On an average year. We would be absolutely stinking rich. That's that useless shit that was running out in 2014. Has anybody dragged that bastard Ian Woods into a court for misleading the public and sued his arse? Has anybody dragged fucking UK government into a court? Or the leaders of the Labour, Tory and Lib Dem parties here in Scotland at the time? Because misleading the public like that, it's going to be an offence. And if it's no, we need to fucking create one. Especially when it comes to important things like elections and referenda. We need to put a law in place where if these bastards mislead, then afterwards they can be dragged into court. And I mean that. Right, let's move on. And the final story I picked out to talk about yesterday was Dross. Douglas Ross. Dross has made such an arse of himself lately. Sorry, we better clean this up a bit. This is before the watershed. Anyway, Dross is making headlines for all the wrong reasons. Even BBC Scotland's political editor, Glenn Campbell, gets in on the act, as speculation over Dross's future as the Tory branch office manager here in Scotland continues. Now what's it all about? Dross and his flip-flops. You'd think the faker was at the seaside the way he flip-flops. You know? Anyway, Dross's flip-flopping on Bojo and Partygate is absolutely phenomenal. The press corps have been ripping the piss out of him. Aye, you should resign, but only after the Ukrainian war's finished. No, he should stay in place because of the Ukrainian war. Ah, brilliant. I think it's even better when we get to the star of the day in the paper report, but we'll get there in a minute. Anyway, Drossy say, as I said during First Ministers, that lot sitting behind Ross from the Bain or from renting yesterday at First Ministers, they were staring him right in the back and growling at him. Hey, the night of the long knives is going to be there for Dross well before the night of the long knives gets there for Bojo. Yeah, will Dross be at First Ministers next week? I bet he's hoping he's no, because me Nicky will be back next week and she'll brook none of his bloody nonsense. Anyway, Drossy Jake is on a sugarly peg. And the press pack are ripping the piss right out of him. Hey. But I mean, Sarwar's not getting it any better. When we get to the paper review, folks, you're going to love what happens with Sarwar in the paper review, alright? Speaking of which, let's get to the bloody paper review. Oh, there's some good stuff in the paper review this morning. Right, where am I get back at the top? This one's okay. Of course, as you can imagine, the majority is on Sunak and his bailout. But of course, as I've pointed out and said, please read Mr. Milligan's blog. David's a writer between the two A's. He's a blogger, even though I write a journal and things like that. David's a blogger, and I'm the vlogger. But his blog's on my timeline, it's on his timeline. It is definitely worth a read, folks. Alright? It's well constructed, well thought out, and it's not too long. David's no daft, he knows he's going to keep it under 1,000 words. I use a lot of no stick about to read it. Right, here we go. Let's see what the papers have got to say. Right, where are we? The eye has every home to get 400 cut in energy bills. Aye, so what? The amount of money the buggers are making, wait until wait until the cap's lifted again next spring. Yeah, at least 400 quid off your energy bill this winter means that your granny might get a chance to get something to eat, and some kids might get something to eat, and alright. The Metro has £400 payout in Sunak U-turn. Every family to get cash off energy bills. Poor handed an extra 650. Windfall tax brought in after Labour pressure. It wasn't after Labour pressure at all, it was a way of public opinion. There was opinion poll after opinion poll. There's 380 Tories in that bloody parliament. Labour's about putting no pressure on nobody. Absolutely nobody. Wishful thinking that for the Metro. Labour, pressure for Labour made them change his mind. No, it didn't. That was a way of public opinion, and opinion poll after opinion poll. Go and remember they were screaming for this bloody windfall tax this last October. Right, the Herald. Millions get 400 off energy bills to help with cost of living crisis. The loony rag, the Daily Express. Roosie's boost for Scotland. Apparently, the 400 quid's only for us guys, you know, it wasn't UK wide. And what's he talking about Roosie's boost for Scotland? Let me make this clear for anybody that's fucking stupid enough not to know this. They don't have any money. It's our money. They're fucking spending. I heard that idiot in Question Time. Somebody sent me a clip. We were talking about buying off the public with his windfall tax. And the wee diddy's sitting there, the Tories saying, we spent 400 billion in furlough. You spent fuck all in furlough. It's our money. No theirs, they don't have money. It's called the public purse because it's our fucking money. Except they spend it on their priorities rather than on ours. Richie's boost for Scotland. They what it's called the loony right-wing rag the Express. Fucking idiots. Somebody ought to take these wazzocks to court and all. The Telegraph has, Tories are now the party of big spending, says Sunak. Aye, when it's not somebody else's money. Our money! Spanners. On the second headline in the Telegraph is, fear for chippies as ministers prepare to ban Russian fish. So we're looking at 20 quid for a fish supper, kids. Looks like your chippy on the corner's going out of business. The Scottish Daily Mail. Hey, Mr. Milligan, the next one we do, the two Davy show, we're going to have to do it in taxation so that people understand whose money it is they're spending and where the hell it comes from. Right, the other right-wing loony rag, the Scottish Daily Mail, has everyone to get at least 400 off autumn energy bills and 1,500 for the most in need. Huge 10% pension hike. And, you know, for once it's telling the bloody truth. Rishi's 21 billion handout for all. It's not a 21 billion handout. It's coming right back out of our pockets. It's our money, it's our taxation that goes into the bloody treasury. Oh, maybe I should explain that without swearing alone. The Times has Tories split on tax and spend bonanza. You bet they'll be spitting feckin' teeth. Listen, 21 billion to save 21 billion to save Bojo's arse again. Jeez, just as well they stole that much while the pandemic was on, through dodgy contracts and things like that. The Scotsman has energy payout for millions after Sunak U-turns on tax. Households to receive at least 400 off energy bills, with poorest getting more. And that is true. Sunak actually must have taken a wee bit of time and thought about this because he was working with Martin Lewis to get the money where it's really needed. But as I've pointed out, and as David, if you read David's blog, it's been pointed out, this one app's not going to help kids. We're talking about, the Bank of England were talking about high inflation rates there for years now. I'm sorry, they're saying that the inflation rates will be high for years, which means the cost of living is going to be high for years. Interest rates are going to be high for years. Even the middle classes are getting smacked in this one. Thank God for that, because it'll help the cause of Scottish independence. Right, the National's got my favourite headline of the day, kids. The National has Scottish Labour have rejected a progressive alliance to run Edinburgh. Instead, they have done a deal with the Tories. The party of Boris Johnson, austerity, Partygate, Brexit. Today we asked everyone who voted for Anna Sarwar, do you feel betrayed? And this is all due to Swinney giving him a spanking in the chamber yesterday. Vote Labour, get Tory, vote Tory, get Labour. Two cheeks of the one arse. Fag paper in between anyone. Brilliant. Right, let's see what the stars got for us. Oh, let's see what the Rancid's got for us. The Rancid goes on some American actor, Ray Liotta, dying. I think I remember him doing a baseball movie, looking at that picture. But I haven't watched the TV or movies for years. So, apparently he always wanted to be a gangster. Well, what an ambition that is, to be a crook. You could always join the criminal cabal at Westminster, get a job as an MP. Oh no, he can't, he's dead. Oh dear. Right, and what's the Daily Star got for us today? This is brilliant. Vladdy Helljezer, World No 3. Putin's pals say war is turning the UK into cannibals. Rather surprising news flashed across state-controlled television in Russia. And it turns out it's all the fault of Jezza Clarkson. According to the Daily Star of Scotland, presenter General Clarkson has sparked frenzied excitement in Russia, where state-controlled television have claimed that Britons are resorting to cannibalism due to the war in Ukraine. Brilliant. You can't beat the Star for a laugh. What a way around the week. Now mind, don't be eating your grandchildren or your daughters, your sons. Granny Disney fit in the soup pot now, kids. Brilliant. The Russians think we're all eating each other because of the war in Ukraine. Well, I'll tell you what though, down in Westminster there's a shitload of gammon that can do with being eaten. An awful lot of pigs with snouts in the troughs. Brilliant. Oh, there goes the mouse. Just shot my mouse right across the bloody flare. Well, lovely. Right, that's what I've got for you. I hope you found it informative. I hope you found it entertaining. Brilliant. Right, where are we? Aye, listen, there's no big elections coming up for a while, so put your partisan politics in your pockets, keep your eyes on the prize, learn your how you gonnies, and get out there and win hearts and minds, alright? Where are we? Aye, support the independent media, support bloggers and bloggers. I'm not looking for any support, David's not looking for any support, but if there's any bloggers and bloggers out there who have got a crowdfunder going, you've got a shekel to spare, throw them in the pot. These guys do great work. And health messaging, alright. Face coverings in close public spaces. Sarah and I are still doing it, you know. Clean hands and surfaces regularly. When it comes to social distancing, use your map. Remember, there's 170,000 of us out there walking about with this virus. Alright? And if you're still doing tests, remember, submit your results to NHS Scotland to keep a good idea on how much it's in the community. Alright? Now, you have a cracking weekend. I don't intend to broadcast this weekend, but I don't know, Davy and I might have to, we might have to schedule the two Davy shows for different nights in the week, so, well, you know, we'll see how things go. But I'm not expecting to broadcast this weekend, alright? So you guys have a cracking weekend. Look after yourselves. I better bugger off. The news is on. You'll be wanting to go and you'll be wanting to go and watch a propaganda machine. Try not to put your boots through the telly, folks. Although a lot of broken tellies could see a wee bounce in the economy. That's if we Mrs. McGumpers get any money. Buy the new.